Welcome, namaste. Welcome to the first seminar of the Center for Indic Studies for this year, 2024. We are very excited to have a speaker who has great credentials, and we will formally introduce her a little later. But just to set the stage, we will be discussing the concept of Ahimsa, which it's difficult to translate. I mean, most of the time people translate it as non-violence. But if you look at the etymology, himsa, the Sanskrit word himsa, it can mean a lot of things, not just violence, injury, harm, etc., etc. So means the negation of it. So ahimsa, it has assumed tremendous importance in Indic tradition, in Indic philosophy. And we have a statement in one of our Dharma Shastras which says Ahimsa is the greatest principle to hold on to. But it's also present in other philosophy. For example, in Ashtanga Yoga, Ahimsa is one of the yamas that you have to abide by. One of the 8, you can say, limbs. So it plays a central role in many different ways. So today we will look at why ahimsa or non-violence is so important, why it has become such, this statement, ahimsa paramo dharma, the non-violence is the greatest principle, why it has assumed so much importance in Indic philosophy. And to discuss this, there cannot be any better speaker than Dr. Rashmi Chaturvedi, who is the director of Kanoria Mahavidyalaya, PG Mahila Mahavidyalaya in Jaipur, India. And I will now request Bela Gupta ji, to formally introduce our speaker. Bela ji, over to you.
Thank you, sir. We are very happy to welcome our distinguished guest and honorable speaker for our first Center of Indic Studies webinar for this year, Dr. Rashmi Chaturvedi. She is director of Kanoria PG Mahila Mahavidyalaya, Jaipur. Jaipur is the capital city of the state of Rajasthan, and some fun facts about Jaipur. It was founded by King Savai Jai Singh II in 1727. It has a history dating back to ancient times. And this eminent college, located in Jaipur, has completed 58 years of its dynamic journey with an aim to educate, emancipate, and empower young women. The college has emerged as one of the leading institutions of higher learning in Rajasthan, a state in the western part of India. The college imparts education with an emphasis on holistic development of the students. Under the leadership of Dr. Rashmi Chaturvedi, the college offers undergraduate, postgraduate studies in arts, sciences, commerce, fine arts, computer science, biotechnology, business administration, fashion designing, nutrition, and interior design. Dr. Chaturvedi's publications and projects include Unveiling Womanhood Text and Context, published by Rawat Publishers in Jaipur, Relocation of Indian Myths, a proposal submitted for Indo-German cultural exchange, Breaking Through the Disciplines, a proposal accepted for Fulbright Fellowship in 2001. She has translated Khudaram by Pandey, Beche, and Sharma, which are 23 stories published by the eminent Sahitya Academy in New Delhi in 1996. Dr. Chaturvedi has organized several seminars and conferences on education of women and higher education in India, and organized several creative writing workshops with distinguished writers and poets like Noam Chomsky, Javed Akhtar, Ashok Bajpai, Mridula Garg, and others. Dr. Chaturvedi has international affiliations with Department of Women's Studies, San Diego State University, California, as well as University of Guelph, Canada. She is president of Women's Rehabilitation Group and Jaipur District Coordinator, Rajiv Gandhi Study Circle, among many others. Dr. Chaturvedi has received several awards and distinctions, like the Fulbright Fellowship in 2001-2002 for Administration in Higher Education, and Katha Award for translation from Rajasthani language to Hindi, among many others. So without further ado, let us hear from Dr. Rashmi Chaturvedi and listen to her talk on Ahimsa Paramadharma or Parmodharma. Welcome, Dr. Chaturvedi.
Thank you, Bela. And
So,
greeting.
Dr. Chaturvedi, just for a moment, while Sarika is uploading the PowerPoint, audience, if you could please switch off your microphones. Dr. Chaturvedi will speak for about 35-40 minutes, and then we will have a Q&A session where you can either type in your questions and Belaji will moderate that, or you can also raise your hand and ask. So over to you, Dr. Chaturvedi.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here on this platform with you all. And I'm very happy to be connected here. But first, one thing that I would like to share with you initially is that I've been a student of English literature. But this is my interest, Indian philosophy. And I have studied a little Indian philosophy also, but this is Indian culture, Indian religion, Indian philosophy has been the area of my interest. That's why I decided to speak on Ahimsa here. In 2007, UNO declared a day for non-violence on October 2nd, the birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. This is one contribution that India has made to the world society and its ethos. Another contribution, of course, as you know, is zero to the field of mathematics. But non-violence, as we roughly translate it, as has already been said, that it is not a synonym. It is not an exact translation, because non-violence would mean absence of violence, would also mean love, compassion, sympathy, empathy for fellow human beings. So it's difficult to define non-violence in that matter, but I would like to take into account for defining non-violence, culture, philosophy, and religion, all three of them, in order to define what non-violence is. And in my, as you can see, the overview of presentation, non-violence is the ultimate dharma, the ultimate duty. Here, dharma would mean duty, and which has been taken from Mahabharat and later became a dictum of Jainism propounded by Bhagwan Mahaveer. As we know that in Mahabharat, the actual shlok is Ahimsa Parmo Dharma is only half of it. The full shlok in Sanskrit, I do not have it here right now, but that would mean that in order to save your religion, in order to save your kith and kin, you can resort to violence. This is what in Mahabharat you have. But later, when it comes to Jainism, Jainism takes into account the entire humanity, and not only humanity, all living beings, all that has grown organically, humans or even vegetation, nature, for that matter. So, non-violence in Jainism is for everyone, compassion and empathy, sympathy for everyone, and complete absence of violence, which was not there in Mahabharata. But gradually it has developed into this concept. And even in Vedic times, when Ahimsa was, or non-violence was a duty for everyone, even in those days, Vedic literature is also rife with inner contradictions. There were several sects of Indian community or Indian tribes who believed in animal sacrifice, and there were other sections who believed that in order to propitiate God, you need not sacrifice animal lives. So this contradiction has always existed. Even in Vedic yajna or yajna, as you call them, even in them, uh, the animal sacrifice was allowed in some of the sects, but it was not allowed otherwise. So the idea of non-violence has begun from Vedic literature, or even you can say prehistoric times. Philosophy of a society, civilization is continuous and incessant process of formulating and refining ideas and identifying values for defining the purpose of living. Whereas culture is a collective form in its literary and artistic manifestations. In other words, its texts. Religion in that sense, because we have taken help of scriptures for defining non-violence and the gradual growth of this concept. So I have taken help of scriptures and religion. Scriptures are all manifestations of religion. And in religion, you combine philosophy and culture both. Because the transcendental idea is a part of religion, and the cultural practices that the society adopts is also included in religion. And that is why I feel that religion takes into account both these things, cultural manifestations, as well as transcendental philosophy. Next is Indian civilization has seen the origin and rise of many religions, both Vedic and non-Vedic, but the central ethos of all of them is that of non-violence. Indian metaphysics culminates in Aham Brahmasmi. The metaphysical idea of Indian philosophy is that we are all a part of Brahman or the super soul. We are all a part of Brahman, and so every individual, every human being and every individual is a part of Brahman. Now from Aham Brahmasmi to Ahimsa Parmo Dharma. This is the gradual transition of Indian philosophy. And in Indian philosophy, they have collected, defined, and redefined the ideas, the metaphysical idea of a super soul, which is a part of life, which is a part of all, which we all share. The spirit of Brahman, we all share, and that's how we all are, in a way, a part of Brahman or the super soul, as you can call it. I am Brahman or super soul, which eliminates duality, and Indian philosophy, by saying I am Brahmasmi, is eliminating duality of existence. There are no disparities, there are no two things. There is oneness, which is ekatva or ekatma also. So ekatva or ekatma, this in Aham Brahmasmi, this all becomes one. And by making them all one, what philosophy or religion is trying to tell us is that there are no disparities, there are no differences, we are all one. And as such, empathy, sympathy, love, compassion should be a part or should be a duty of all human beings. So from a basic instinct of love and compassion and sympathy, the scriptures have made this into a duty. this transition or this development, this growth, you can see through the scriptures in Indian philosophy. Since the 19th century, there has been a lot of literature written on the idea or the concept of nonviolence. And they have defined it variously. But I have taken only two viewpoints here for my discussion. One is that it is intrinsic. Non-violence is intrinsic in all human beings, and it is non-violence and peace are natural, ubiquitous, and normal in human species throughout its evolution and adaptation. In fact, for well over 1 million years, evolution has selected for a human nature that is naturally inclined towards non-violence, peace, cooperation, reciprocity, empathy, and compassion in the context of nomadic forager societies that comprise 99% of human existence. And they believed that had this not been there, had this not been an intrinsic idea, or had this not been a value of human society to love other human beings, to love other creatures, society would have, people would have finished each other in that case, because survival, of course, is the first instinct. But in order to survive, if you have to initially, in prehistoric times, you can see that in order to survive, even today, in order to survive, killing others is somehow condoned, even in law. It is to a good extent condoned. If you, for self-preservation, if you have to attack somebody, then even in law, this can be condoned. So this was one way that one way of saying that it is intrinsic, it is there in all human beings, and it is a kind of basic instinct. The other view that I have taken is that non-violence, the word itself comes with a prefix. And as in Hindi we say, hinsa. And when we say ahimsa, a is a prefix, and words which are used with a prefix or which come with a prefix are generally the later development of society and language both. Because social evolution, evolution of civilization, and evolution of language, they have always coexisted. They have gone hand in hand. And we know that initially when only sounds were, there were words only for sounds. But later, how concepts developed through sounds grew into words, and how with the help of words, concepts developed. So since this comes with a prefix, so it is assumed that violence in human nature existed and absence of violence grew gradually with the growth of civilization. We are hardwired with language. Concepts have associations with growth of language. After developing vocabulary, it is much more natural and convenient to take existing words for a concept and then modify them. So non-violence, as we know, it's not a natural word. It can be, in a way, defined as a basic instinct, is a part of a basic instinct, but the word itself, the concept itself came much later when words taken together were made into concepts, and the words, with the help of these words, either with suffixes and prefixes, in the growth of language, words were coined, words the concepts were made. And so non-violence in this way is a concept. I would like to assume that this is violence is a natural instinct. Violence is there in everyone. But non-violence is a parameter, is a way by which we can examine the growth of a civilization. So gradually, as the civilization grew, the idea of non-violence and coexistence, and non-violence as a measure for using as a tool, as a measure, and using this as a tool for conflict resolution, cross-border, within society, or within oneself also, within the self also. Then I have this slide, which is chronology of scriptures. I have only given it for the purpose of when we talk about how this grew from a basic instinct of love and sympathy, how absence of violence, which can be termed as a basic instinct, how absence of violence became predominant in social milieu, and how civilization and societies grew in order to coexist and flourish. Then I come to Ahimsa Parmo Dharma, which is the dictum of Jainism. And it began from Mahabharat, from Vedic literature, came to Mahabharat, and from there to the other religions, which are anti-Vedic religions, in fact. And one of the reasons why they were separated, why these sects separated themselves from Vedic India or Vedic history, is because of the use of violence that they thought Vedic literature has, or Vedic scriptures or Vedic rituals have. And hence, Buddhism, Jainism, and to a good extent, Sikhism, they are the offshoots of Vedic religions, Vedic philosophy, but they have stepped aside from Vedic core philosophy only in order to love human beings, only in order to have a society which can coexist, which can have empathy for everyone. And even in Jainism, you would find, whereas in Vedic literature, this love or empathy or sympathy, whatever it has, is only for human beings. When you come to Jainism, they have refined the concept of non-violence by a complete absence of violence. Violence not only for human beings, but even for other creatures or anything which grows organically. And in Jainism practices, you would know that even for vegetation, they are very adamant about not hurting even vegetation, let alone animals. So in Indian system, how this idea of non-violence has grown, which I'm trying to show you through this slide. In Rig Veda, kindness has been posited as a duty, and harming any human being is sin or sacrilege. Here, it is confined only to humans. The absence of violence only for humans. Don't harm any humans. That was the idea propounded in Rig Veda. In some way, the concept of living and human life is indicated to be based on ekat, unity of oneness. We are all one. And when we are all one, we cannot harm each other. If we harm others, we are harming ourselves also in some way. So this idea of ekatva, which grew later, Rig Veda is the first Ved that came in, that is recognized as the first Veda, and Samved refines it a little and talks about, bases it on philosophy, that we are all one and we cannot harm each other. In Atharved, Maitri Bhav for all, not killing animals for sacrifice but help and serve them. So by the time we come to Atharved, Maitri Bhav for everyone, that is the idea of oneness, the feeling of oneness with everyone, filial love for everyone is what is propounded in Atharved. In Brahmanas, men's duties include love and respect for all humans and non-humans, following Panchrin. This is Panchrin, 5 debts that we all have to repay in our life. 5 debts that we are born with and which we should repay in our life. So animals and vegetation, we are indebted to them also for our survival. And if we are indebted to them, we'll have to repay it. We'll have to pay it back to them by loving them, by not harming them. Upanishads promote charity and non-violence. In scriptures, non-violence in a way is religion. So from a basic instinct to absence of violence to Maitri Bhav to Ekatva to philosophy, we have come to a point where absence of violence or diminishing violence it becomes our religion, it becomes our duty. It is included in our religion. In Shanti Parv, Mahabharat defines non-violence as one of the projections of truth out of 13 which have been enumerated. At macro level, truth and non-violence become one and merge into each other. Killing animals for food was prohibited. In Shanti Parv, from killing animals for propitiating gods, from killing animals for your own survival, we come to a point in Mahabharat, in Shanti Parv, where animal killing is prohibited in any way, neither for rituals nor for survival. In Vaman Puran, charity, peace, and generosity are all manifestations of being human. Matsya Puran, absence of anger and greed. So how the idea is refined. It is not just aggression. It is not just attack. It is not just killing somebody. The absence of anger and greed. So the basic instincts of anger and greed, they also, and patience and forgiveness are the core values. They become, when we come to Matsya Puran, which is a scripture which came much later, we find that the idea of absence of violence, how refined it is, how we have seen how it associates with philosophy, how it becomes a part of culture, and how in our scriptures it becomes a religious practice. In all Puranas, non-violence is the highest value and moral. Public welfare measures result from non-violence. In all Puranas, if a society has to survive and grow and flourish, absence of hatred, absence of violence, absence of killing is prohibited if you have to survive, if you want the society to flourish. In Vedic literature, non-violence is central to ethics. I am nothing nothing belongs to me. This obliterates ego and eliminates differences. So we have seen how religion, culture, and philosophy, they all become one when it is turned into a concept. Till language had only a word. There were the manifestations of this word, the meanings of this word were described variously. But when it becomes a concept, it is included in religion, culture, and philosophy, all of them. So non-violence here, by the time the scriptures, we come to the end of scriptures, it becomes a concept, and it becomes one in all three realms: philosophy, religion, and culture. Then we come to Jainism and Buddhism, which came much later, because there were some practices which in Vedic Vedic rituals, from which they wanted to dissociate. One was in between. There comes Manusmriti, which is, of course, later, but Manusmriti is one text. You can say that Ahimsa has a checkered history that way, because Manusmriti is one text which survives only on distinction, disparity, and differences. So Manusmriti also comes in between, but Buddhism and Jainism and Sikhism, these three, which are anti-Vedic religions, but at core of all of them, they are also Ahimsa. They also believe in Ahimsa, and it is because that they believe in Ahimsa, they parted ways with Vedic rituals. In order to part their ways with Vedic rituals, they set up their own rituals, they set up their own practices in which no violence was allowed in any form, in any way. Then after this, we know the history, as far as history of India is concerned, it has been very, very checkered, because there were aggressions on the Indian continent, and some aggressors who dominated the scene, who came to India and dominated the scene and resorted to violence. But then at the end of it comes Gandhi. Indian emancipation or liberation of India from the colonial rule. There comes Gandhi, and Gandhi defined ahimsa in the form of satyagraha. Satyagraha means conviction and commitment to truth. And he believed, if you have conviction for truth, then you are one with everyone. If you are committed to truth, then you cannot harm anyone. And he resorted to non-violent ways in defeating the British colonialism. He has practiced ahimsa, and he has made the country flourish with this idea of ahimsa. After this, but till then, till Gandhism, till then, we only assumed that man by nature, although the idea has been made into a concept, the idea has been refined, but man by nature is empathetic, has sympathy, has love, and believes in the absence of harming others. Now, merely by assuming that this can happen, this will happen with all human beings. All human beings are intrinsically good. Only on this assumption, societies and the conflicting societies and the contradiction, conflicts in societies cannot survive only by assuming that all human beings are good. And so it was believed that non-violence, not only a concept, it should become a practice. And how it becomes a practice is that there has to be a training in practicing non-violence. Now, how does one train to practice non-violence? Gandhi has done that. And Gandhi has shown this to the world, that by practicing non-violence also, you can survive and you can win. But gradually, as when after Gandhi, gradually, after at this juncture at least, I think there are about more than 400 universities which are offering courses on peace studies. Because peace has to be taught. Peace cannot be assumed to be living in every heart. It has to be taught. People have to be trained to be non-violent and trained to live in peace. And for this, in America itself, you would have a number of universities offering peace studies. And Gandhi is, of course, part of peace studies, and he not only succeeded in getting freedom for our country, he has been an inspiration the world over. And a few examples that I can take is Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, and recently in America, one movement, Black Lives Matter. All this is because of the inspiration behind them. The inspiration is Gandhi. Behind them, the inspiration is Indian ethos. And this Indian ethos, which through Gandhi has reached to other societies also. Although I know in other religions also, especially in Christianity and religions of China, Confucianism, and all this, they also believe in love and peace. But by practicing peace, by practicing non-violence, to get liberation for a country, to use it as a tool, this was what Gandhi has done. And that is why he is an inspiration for other countries also. Peace education plays a vital role in helping produce and sustain a culture of nonviolence. Peace education is a diverse field that includes varied pedagogical approaches and educational practices and methods. So in their syllabus, they include strategies which can be adopted by for conflict resolution, and they also teach history of peace, history of violence, and how harm and violence and aggression, how this can be obliterated from societies. Peace education provides necessary infrastructure for all members of society to play a vital role in creating a culture of non-violence. All this is happening in books, but there are other cultural representations also by which non-violence is being taught and is being practiced. I don't know how many of you have seen Munna Bhai, MBBS, film, a movie shot in India and been shown in India, in which uh, a simpleton, a very simple person who's verging on to be a goon, how he is converted through peace. He dreams of Gandhi, and he somehow feels that Gandhi is standing in front of him and giving him instructions and dictates. So he follows them. And by following them, he becomes how he is converted to a, an epitome of peace. How he is converted to a peaceful person, a person who can contribute to society and not harm anyone. So these kind of things, these kind of cultural representations also are also happening. And you would be surprised to know that no amount of books, teachings have helped young people to understand Gandhi than this film, Munna Bhai MBBS. Thank you. Any questions that you have?
Thank you so much, Dr. Chaturvedi, for enlightening us so beautifully this progression from Rig Veda to Black Lives Matter, this chronology. And now it's the time for Q&A. So Bela Gupta ji will moderate it. Bela ji, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Sukaran Singh Gupta ji. And thank you to our guest, Dr. Rashmi Chaturvedi, and today's keynote speaker. I can't thank you enough for the thought process that you have started in our minds, and especially in my mind, where you have connected so much from India's ancient heritage and past to the present. So this was a really great discussion and it's going to be a great discussion, but it was a great presentation. And I'd like to thank you. At this point, I would also like to thank Dr. Seema Agarwal for making this happen. Without her and my correspondence, which has been going on for over a year, we would not have had the opportunity to listen to Dr. Rashmi Chaturvedi. So before we go on to other questions, I just had a quick question of my own, Doctor. So if I may ask you, just the other day I was watching a movie, a motion picture, The Green Book. And I did not know anything about that movie before I started watching it, but it really impressed me. And there was one thing that stood out for me. And I am in a dilemma right now, how to connect the thought process that started with a dialogue in the movie, which actually was an African American talking to an Italian American in the 1960s in America, when there were deep divisions. And there was a lot of discrimination based on color in the United States of America. And this dialogue happens in the Deep South. And the African American, who is actually a pianist and a genius, a doctor, he tells the Italian American, who's a bouncer and who had lost his temper on somebody and was ready to indulge in violence. And this is what he said to him: "You never win with violence. You only win when you maintain your dignity." I understand, I mean, this is a very, very deep thought. And it kind of triggered in my mind the thought of how nonviolence is, in many situations, it helps. But, these days, doctor, we are seeing there is so much violence happening in the world, especially, as you see between Palestine and Israel. So, how do you check by non-violence? Because, I mean, what has happened is really terrible there, and it is still happening. But how you stop this with non-violence? Could you throw some light on that?
The cross-border terrorism and cross-border conflicts can also be resolved through negotiations, through mediations. And as I said, we cannot go only by assuming that intrinsically everybody loves others. There is complete absence of violence or the desire to harm others or to be politically superior to the others. So we cannot assume this. There has to be a training for this. And that is why, and this is a new field of training which has come up. Earlier, like when I take, for example, military trainings, self-defense or survival instinct is there in every human being. But when in army, they are trained to stretch it to their country. It is self-defense means defend your country. So this kind of training where the idea of survival is also extended to other areas to like it first comes to your own body, your own self, then to your own area, then to your country. And so there has to be a training process and it has to be included in the education system. And this has not been so far. Peace studies, non-violence and all these things, they are all the strategies to adopt non-violent measures in order to survive, in order to win. These strategies have to be evolved and have to be taught. Unless this happens, it's a long process. It will not happen in a day. But as you said, the dialogue that you were talking about is, it is dignity. It is human dignity, which matters more than violence or harming others. So human dignity is, if you can connect it to the scriptures, to philosophy, to cultural rituals, human dignity would have a different meaning altogether, where that you are human, consider others also to be human and become one with them. All humanity, partake in all humanity, become a part of all humanity. Human dignity does not mean dignity of a person, my dignity as a human being. No, it means dignity of being human and not mine alone. Every human being's dignity is my dignity. I think, I don't know whether I have been able to answer your query or not, but
No, thank you so much. This is very helpful for me to understand as a person, and for all the people here to get a different perspective on nonviolence. So this is very helpful. I would urge everyone to put their questions in chat so that I can ask them. Or, individuals, if they are interested in asking a question, may just speak up here. So I don't see any questions. Let me see. Any? Yes, Ranjana wants to ask a question. Please go ahead, Ranjana.
I just wanted to say, can you hear me?
Yes.
yes, I can.
I just wanted to say that violence and non-violence, they subsist together in human beings.
Yes.
Secondly, uh, the Vedic um, non-violent non-violence in the Vedic times probably was increasing, and it was not the only reason why Buddhism and Jainism came up. Firstly, Jainism has a long history, even about the time before the Vedas,
Yes.
because there are so many Tirthankars. Now, the only thing that was happening in the Vedic culture was there was a lot of discrimination between the castes, the jatis,
Yes.
and
So I talked about
therefore,
Manusmriti.
this was also kind of violence.
Yes.
And therefore, because killing is not the only thing that is violent. As Buddha said, violence begins in the mind, the thought process. Now, what I mean to say is that they go together, and for, as you said, for civilization, it is very necessary that we understand the importance of non-violence, because otherwise we will be destroying the universe. That is what I wanted to say, that there are all kinds of non-violence, and so lot all types of violence. It's not just killing, it's also hate and jealousy. These are also violent thoughts. Thank you.
Right. You want me to answer, or because
No, I was
this
just making a
observation
statement.
and I should, yes, this should be included in this. And as I said, violence in Vedic rituals was one of the reasons why they parted ways. There were historically, there were some other reasons also. And of course, caste system was the most important thing that has segregated India, that has separated one sect from the other. And Manusmriti, of course, that's why I mentioned Manusmriti, which is the basis of all differences and discrimination.
Yes.
So, but we have a constitution now. We do not have Manusmriti any longer, and constitution that makes
I
us
hope the
one.
constitution is not changed.
It is not so. It is still secular. It is still sovereign. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
It was
Andhirani.
an interesting talk.
Thank you.
I'm really seeing a lot of lovely comments in the chat, but I do not see any questions in chat right now. Dr. Seema Agarwal points out the chronological description of the evolution of peace is really interesting and informative. And then Dr. Sakshi Singh is thanking you, as is Dr. Swati. Jaya Sharma points out, thanks you, and she found the discussion very interesting. Dr. Sarika calls it a perfect day to understand and recognize the importance of peace today being Martyrs' Day when Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated. So really great point. Dr. Sukalyan Sen Gupta says, as you said, both love and violence are intrinsic to human beings. If the goal is to train to follow non-violence, isn't peace studies at the higher education level too late? I believe it's a question. So if you would like to answer, Dr. Rashmi.
It is late. I also believe in this, that, but in fact, I think after India's independence and after South Africa's independence, and after several other movements which have been successful, through the measures or through the tools of not harming anyone, only resistance, only peaceful resistance. So it is after this that it has evolved as a discipline. And now to organize this as a discipline of study this will take a little time. And peace studies, of course, it has come up, I think, 20 years or so. Not a very old discipline. It should have come, but better late than never. It has come, and I think we in India also should decide to have peace studies, have harmony.
Thank you for that answer. I think Pratibha wants to say something. Please go ahead, Pratibha.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to mention that I think the idea for the processes of negotiation should be continually encouraged, because if people talk, there are chances that new ideas develop, and then the commitments of whatever is decided in the negotiation should be, carried out. I think that cannot be emphasized too much. It is a really good step in the right direction for peacefulness. And the other thing I think that matters a lot now is that we are a global societies now. I mean, we are not the individual smaller things that used to exist on the earth when there was fewer people. So this communication, to see how similarities and basic things between people exist everywhere, if people really try to see this, then it's also an aspect of negotiation, but I think it should be really increased. And the third thing is, I think it would be helpful for societies and everyone to see really more deeply into what the earth is all about, the cosmos is all about, and dig into those kind of things that see the similarities and the need and the real function of peacefulness, of the way people to treat each other. So that I just wanted to mention. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for your observation. And I think we earlier had a non-aligned movement also and believed in peaceful coexistence.
Right.
The principles of Panchashil, there were 5 principles which believed in, which also were given by India. And peaceful coexistence, Jawaharlal Nehru brought it up and became a member. So many countries became a member of non-aligned because of this Cold War between the 2 superpowers. And in order to save ourselves, save the countries from this conflict of superpowers, the non-aligned movement was set up. And I think after the 2 world wars, the UN, United Nations organization, this also came up after the 2 world wars. So whenever humanity is in crisis, the world comes up with some strategy, some tools, some measures to survive and to save this universe, to save humanity. So this has happened in history all through. So I think peace studies and educating younger generations to live and let live, coexist, has become very important in today's violent times.
Thank you for that great answer, Dr. Rashmi. There is a question from Emma. Emma, would you like to say the question yourself? Or I mean, I could ask ask it too, if you like. So Emma's question, Emma, would you like to?
Sure, yeah, I don't mind. Thank you, Bela.
You're
So
welcome.
my question is, what are some ways that individuals can approach and begin peace education for themselves, that personal education? And also, how can we promote peace education for those around us?
Like, see, this is a long drawn process. Through peace education, educating people to coexist, to let others live, to live in harmony, to have peace, is what education can do. Education has done all this over the years. Whenever there is a time of crisis,
Right.
it is through education that, or it is through negotiation, and it is through debate, it is through question answers, it is through discussions that new measures have come up. And I believe that peace education would help others also, but it has to have input of psychological training too.
Yes.
Not just history. Yes, not just history, not just politics, psychological training, which should begin from childhood training. And let's be hopeful. Things would come up, the world would be a better place.
Thank you, Dr. Rashmi. There's very quickly another question. I know we are running a little over our time, but it's fine. And this is such a great discussion. So we have a question from Roy. Bullying in schools is a very big problem. The practice of non-violence must be inculcated in an early age in life. Do you think our educational system should take this into our curriculum?
Mm.
Yes, this is what I said a little while ago, that it should begin with children. This practice should begin with children, because teaching this course at the level of higher education, by then the youngsters have become a little mature and they have become hardened in their attitudes. So soften them and then unlearn things and then tell them to learn new things. It becomes a little difficult. This training should begin from the beginning, from the households to preschools to schools. And why we should do it? There are stories by which we teach children, and in these stories, how to avoid greed, how not to. So if they, in these stories, why not to harm others? If that becomes a moral, I think this is one of the ways
I
that
like
should work. Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you, Dr. Rashmi Chaturvedi. I think we will now conclude our session for today. And I just wanted to thank you, Dr. Rashmi Chaturvedi, for being our keynote speaker and the Center for Indic, on behalf of the Center for Indic Studies. I would like to thank you and your team, especially Dr. Seema Agarwal, without whose, you know, with my schedule and her schedule, you know, meeting together, it was not difficult to put it together, but at the same time, I would say it was not easy either. And so, you know, I feel very obliged to Dr. Seema Agrawal for you know, gracing this event, plus, you know, bringing her team along, and to have Dr. Rashmi Chaturvedi speak to our university community and to us at the Center for Indic Studies. So I thank you. And also Dr. Sarika, who was at the forefront of, um, doing all the,
The technical things.
technical things, I think. And Dr. Seema Agrawal introduced me to her today only. So thank you for that. And thank you
There
to
is
all of you.
there is one more person sitting with me here, Dr.
Okay.
Preeti Sharma.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Preeti ji. Thank you so much. And if you would like to say something, Dr. Seema Agrawal, to our audience.
So good evening. I can say good evening to all because most of the Indian audience are there, and I hope this relation with your university and this Indic Study Center will go on, and we will conduct more this kind of interactive session. And I think this will be two-way system we will like to have. So any kind of session from any faculty or any subject expert from your center is most welcome, and we would be happy to hold this kind of session from your center also.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm audible, no? Yes.
Yes, of course.
So
Yes,
it's a
this
very
is-
nice experience for all of us. We were
yes.
very excited, and due to some other things, this session was delayed, I think, more than a year. But at last, finally, it happened, and it
Yes.
went very well. It was very informative for all of us also. We have learned and read these things, but not in the manner in which these things are summarized by Dr. Rashmi Chaturvedi for today's session. So thanks to you that by your center, we all get this kind of information and
Yes.
enlightened ourselves. Thank you for this also.
Thank you so much. I see that Dr. Suklan Sen Gupta is back, so maybe he would like to say some words of thanks and the closing statement.
Sure. Thank you again. Just to echo what Belaji said, and yes, we would be very happy to have conversation, discussion with you to make it two-way, as you said. Our faculty have skills and expertise in many areas. Just like your university, we also have science and engineering and humanities and social sciences, so forth and so on. So Belaji and I can coordinate that. And our next seminar, the date hasn't yet been decided. It will be given by Professor Sopori, who was Vice Chancellor of JNU, Jawaharlal Nehru University. He will be speaking on the state of higher education in India, how to make it more efficient and to have the students get the skills that they need for their future career. So again, the date, we are still working on it. I will definitely let you know. And Belaji, if you have that contact address of Seema ji and Dr. Rashmi ji, we can of course circulate to that wider group as well.
Yes.
So with that,
Sure.
With that, thank you so much. And we will look forward to more such enlightening talks from your university. Namaste.
Namaste.
Great.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aman, did you take pictures?
Yes, I took.
Okay, just send them to me, please, in one file.
Okay.